So when I hear about your experience with the donuts, because I want to go to that and then I want to talk about the boundaries piece, because I think the situation you just described is so common, not the spud nuts piece, right? But the food or the trigger in your environment that can be really hard to escape. But then you also don't want to be, or some people don't want to be that person who shows up and they're like, I don't eat sugar and I don't eat spud nuts. I'm better than you guys because I don't eat those things. Like that's not very
Yeah.
palatable to maybe colleagues, right? So we don't want to be that person. So where do we find the balance? And so if you were my client and you were in this situation, I would say, okay, the best thing that works for Alan is for him to separate himself from the situation, and his plan needs to include snacks and meals that he actually enjoys that he can eat around other people, right? Heating up tilapia and broccoli in the break room while everyone else is eating donuts may not be either exciting for you, enticing for you, and it might, kind of literally stink for everyone else. So having something you actually enjoy is so key for when there's temptation around. And if somebody's following another person's meal plan that says, for a snack, eat a banana, okay, maybe they like bananas, but they don't love bananas. And then they see the spud nuts, it's going to be really hard to say, I'm going to just eat my banana instead of the spud nuts. But if they love a banana with almond butter and they're able to put that in their plan, and that almond butter has that like yummy, fatty, creamy texture that scratches the itch, having a banana and almond butter in their meal plan that they created can help them better follow their own plan and not feel so tempted by the spud nuts. Or if it were me and I was in the situation and I was following my BNT protocol, I would say, okay, for breakfast on an empty stomach, the last thing I want to do is put a bunch of refined sugar in my body. That's going to spike my blood sugar, cause a crash. That's going to make me want to keep eating sugar. So, my definition as a normal person would be I've got my plan. I've got this yummy meal that I have for lunch that I'm enjoying, that I'm looking forward to. I'm going to eat that first. And then, if I want to have either half a spud nut or share a spud nut with someone or just try it, I'm going to have it after a meal so that I have more control over my portion. And that would be a way that I would enforce a personal boundary with sugar where I don't totally restrict it, but I have lots of other options and I eat something filling before incorporating that. But that's a personal boundary. So, how do we communicate boundaries when we are feeling peer pressured by everyone? Well, one of the quotes that I put in my book is if it's not a hell yes, it's a polite hell no. So this comes from the perfectionist chapter where she was a people pleaser. A lot of times, perfectionists, believe it or not, tend to be people pleasers. Why else are they trying to be so perfect? Well, to look a certain way or appear a certain way in front of other people. So perfectionists oftentimes not always have trouble saying no because they want to be liked and whatever. So if it's not a hell yes for you, it should be a polite hell no. So unless spud nuts are like your favorite thing ever, they're totally worth it, right? You see them and you're like, yes, this is something I rarely get. It is my favorite dessert. Then instead of, it being like maybe it's a hell yes, then you can find ways to integrate it if you want. But if it's a nah, then it should be a polite hell no. So if somebody comes up to you and they're saying, you gotta have the spud nuts, they're so great, you gotta have it, you can say, "Oh, you know what? I appreciate you having them, but they're not my favorite. I'm looking forward to when Tim brings in the chocolate chip cookies on his birthday next week. Like I'm gonna have some then." And then you kind of, you know, enjoy the camaraderie. You don't seem like somebody who is putting down other people for enjoying the spud nuts, but you're still sticking to your guns. Another thing that you can do, kind of like you mentioned with your workouts during lunch, is communicating with people your boundaries ahead of time. So if sugar keeps showing up in your office and people are continuously offering it, you can simply say, "Hey, I don't eat sugar in the morning. I appreciate it, but if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to skip it. I might enjoy it later. It's just my own personal philosophy. I don't feel very good." And if people don't respect that, then you can just walk away because there's always going to be that people that try to get you to eat what they're eating in a way to make themselves feel better. But I would just say in that situation, walk away. I also mentioned in the book scheduling boundaries. And in your situation with the spud nuts, this doesn't really work, but it works with your fitness plan. So, what I hear from clients a lot of times is that they're in the middle of a workday, whether they're in the office or whether they're at home, and meetings just get put on their calendar. right? Somebody just wants them at noon when it's their scheduled lunch break, or they're supposed to shut their computer at 4:30, but someone schedules something for 4:15, and that impedes in their after work walk or their after work healthy snack. And by the time they get off the call, they're just famished or unmotivated. So by scheduling in your boundaries, putting in breaks in your calendar for lunch and exercise, you are communicating without actually having to say anything. So if possible, making yourself unavailable. It's a great way to make sure you stick to your guns.